What if death was not the end, but the beginning of a deeper journey ruled by powerful African gods who decide the fate of every soul? In Africa, death is feared yet celebrated, terrifying yet sacred. It ends life yet guarantees immortality. Let us unmask the gods who guard eternity.
Death is not the end, it is a door. To some, it is darkness, to others, eternal light. In Africa, death destroys the body, yet gives birth to immortality. It is both feared and celebrated.
In African cosmology, the universe is not divided by life and death. It is a cycle, a river with no end. Death is not destruction but transition, a sacred crossing into the realm of ancestors where spirits live on, watching and guiding the living. The visible world and the invisible are intertwined, connected by rituals, sacrifices, and the unseen forces of gods and ancestors. In this worldview, every birth echoes from the afterlife, and every death opens the doorway to eternity. As the drums fade and the masks return to silence, one truth remains. Death is not a final breath, but a passage guarded by gods whose power still echoes through Africa's soul. To understand them is to understand ourselves, for in death lies the reflection of life. The question is not whether we will meet them, but whether we are prepared for the gods who rule eternity. Reflect on this before your own journey begins. Death. To many cultures, it is the great enemy, the abrupt end to life's fragile flame. But in Africa, death has always carried a double meaning, terrifying, yet sacred. It is not the full stop of existence, but a comma, a transition into another dimension. African cosmology teaches that the living, the dead, and the unborn form an eternal chain. This means that when someone dies, their spirit does not vanish. It simply crosses into the world of the ancestors, continuing its role as a guardian, a witness, and sometimes a judge. In many African traditions, the universe is not divided into heaven and hell in the Western sense. Instead, it is seen as a layered reality, where the visible and the invisible exist side by side. The land of the living is only one part of the great cosmic map. The land of the ancestors lies just beyond the veil, accessible through ritual, dreams, and sacred ceremonies. Priests, diviners, and elders act as mediators between these worlds, guiding the living to honor the spirits and maintain harmony between realms. This worldview explains why death in Africa is often celebrated as much as it is mourned. Funerals are not silent affairs but vibrant ceremonies filled with music, dance, and masquerades. The dead are believed to hear the drums, to see the masks, and to walk among the living one last time before entering their eternal home. To die without such a ceremony is considered tragic, for it risks leaving the soul wandering, restless, and forgotten. But beyond the ancestors, there are darker forces, deities and spirits who govern death itself. They are not merely guardians of the departed, but judges of balance, enforcers of cosmic law, and sometimes bringers of chaos. Their names change across Africa: Oya in Yoruba lands, Adoro among the Igbo, and countless others whispered in shrines and forest groves. But their power is undeniable. They remind the living that death is not only a passage, but also a reckoning. African cosmology teaches that to live well is to die well, and to die well is to join the ancestors in peace. But to live in corruption, violence, or dishonor is to risk angering the gods of death, who may deny one's entry into the ancestral fold. Thus, death is more than a personal fate. It is the ultimate reflection of how one has lived. This is the mystery at the heart of Africa's underworld, a place where life and death are not opposites, but eternal partners in the cycle of existence. In Yoruba cosmology, death is not silence. It is movement, transition, and wind. The Yoruba believe that when a soul departs, it journeys through Orin, the spiritual realm, where it is received by ancestors and judged by divine order. But this path is not simple. It is watched over, guided, and sometimes interrupted by powerful deities whose roles define whether a soul rests in peace or wanders in torment. Foremost among these deities is Oya, the fierce goddess of winds, storms, and cemeteries. Oya is not merely a spirit of destruction. She is the gatekeeper of the grave, the one who ushers souls into the afterlife. She commands the whirlwind that sweeps away the old and clears the way for the new. When the ground shakes and trees bend under violent winds, it is said that Oya is opening doors between the living and the dead. To Yoruba devotees, she is both terrifying and protective, feared for her wrath but revered as the one who ensures safe passage to eternity. But Oya is not alone. The Yoruba envision the afterlife as a layered realm, Orin Rear, the good heaven where righteous ancestors dwell, and Orinapati, the potsherd heaven, a place of shattered souls where those who lived without honor are cast away. The balance between these realms is maintained by the Orisha, divine beings who serve as intermediaries between humans and the supreme god, Olajimere. Every death becomes a question. Will the soul rise to Orin Rear or fall into Orinapati? To guide and honor the spirits of the departed, the Yoruba hold the Egungun festival, one of Africa's most dramatic expressions of the afterlife. During Egungun, masked dancers swirl through the streets, embodying the spirits of the ancestors. Covered from head to toe in elaborate costumes, they are no longer seen as men but as the dead return to bless, warn, and judge the living. The belief is clear: the dead are never gone. They walk among us, watching, waiting, and ensuring that the living uphold the values of their people. This vision of death reveals the profound Yoruba understanding of life's cycle. The dead are not feared as enemies but embraced as guides. Through Oya's winds, Orin's gates, and the Egungun's dance, the Yoruba remind us that death is not darkness. It is transformation. It is the breath of the ancestors carried on the storm, the unseen presence in every ritual, and the eternal bond between the living and the departed. Among the Igbo of southeastern Nigeria, death is not a quiet retreat. It is a confrontation with forces that test the soul's worthiness. The Igbo believe in Allah, the earth goddess who governs morality and the sanctity of the land. When someone dies, their spirit must pass through judgment, and Allah decides whether they join the ancestors or wander as restless shades. But beyond Allah, the Igbo underworld is filled with powerful deities, lords of justice, chaos, and vengeance, who enforce cosmic law. One such deity is Adoro, a mysterious god whose shrines stand in Enugu. Adoro is feared as a spirit of death, justice, and wealth. Those who swore falsely before his shrine were doomed to die suddenly, often struck down by unexplained illness or misfortune. In this way, Adoro was more than a god of death. He was the enforcer of truth, the guardian who ensured that the path to the afterlife remained pure of deceit. To dishonor him was to risk being cast out of the ancestral realm forever. Another powerful figure is Agwagwu, a goddess whose shrines in places like Okija became infamous for their role in oath-taking and divine punishment. Agwagwu is associated with the underworld, fertility, and justice. She does not only accept sacrifices for blessings, she also strikes down liars and murderers who try to hide behind falsehoods. In the Igbo worldview, Agwagwu ensures that death is not an escape from justice. Even in the grave, her hand reaches to balance the scales. Yet, among the Igbo, there is also the trickster and war deity Ekwensu, often misunderstood as a figure of pure evil. Ekwensu embodies chaos, deception, and conflict. In matters of death, he is seen as a disruptor, a spirit who can lure souls astray or spark violence that leads to untimely ends. While feared, he also represents the unpredictable nature of life and death. In rituals, invoking or appeasing Ekwensu acknowledged that death is not always natural, but sometimes manipulated by darker forces. Together, these deities reveal an Igbo truth. Death is not just transition but judgment. It is not random, but deeply tied to one's morality, actions, and spiritual debts. Adoro, Agwagwu, and Ekwensu stand as reminders that the underworld is not a passive resting place but an active realm where truth is tested, justice is delivered, and chaos forever lurks at the edge of eternity. For the Igbo, the gods of death ensure that the living walk carefully, knowing their fate lies not only in life, but in what awaits beyond. In West Africa, the Akan people of Ghana view death as a sacred crossing into the realm of the ancestors, called Asamando. To the Akan, the soul is eternal, traveling from the world of the living into the underworld where Asase Ya, the earth goddess, and other spiritual forces receive it. Ancestors in Asamando are not silent. They are guardians who continue to influence the living, blessing or cursing based on how well they are remembered. This belief makes funerals elaborate ceremonies, ensuring the departed cross safely and powerfully into their new existence. The Akan also believe in the role of Nsamanfo, the ancestral spirits who dwell in Asamando. A good life ensures acceptance into this realm, where the soul lives on with dignity. A life of shame, however, risks rejection, condemning the soul to wander. Thus, morality, respect, and loyalty to family and tradition are not just cultural values. They are keys to the afterlife itself. The gates of Asamando are guarded not only by ancestors but by the weight of one's deeds. If the Akan root their afterlife in earth and ancestry, the Dogon people of Mali extend it into the very stars. The Dogon hold one of Africa's most mysterious cosmologies, linking death to the cosmos itself. They believe that after death, the soul journeys back to its star of origin, guided by the Namo, primordial ancestral beings said to have descended from Sirius. For the Dogon, the afterlife is not a distant heaven but a return to the cosmic source, proving that death is woven into the universe's design. Dogon funerary rites, called Dama, are spectacles of dance, masks, and ritual designed to free the soul of the deceased and guide it safely to the spiritual realm. Without these rites, the soul risks becoming a wandering spirit, disturbing the harmony of both the living and the cosmic order. Through these ceremonies, the Dogon affirm that life and death are never isolated. They are part of the celestial rhythm connecting humans to the stars. The Igbo and Dogon reveal two profound dimensions of African afterlife belief. One rooted in earth, lineage, and moral duty. The other stretched across galaxies, where the soul is a traveler of the cosmos. Together, they shatter the notion that death is simply an end. For the Igbo, it is reunion with ancestors. For the Dogon, it is ascension into the stars. In both, death is eternal continuity, a reminder that humanity belongs to both the soil beneath our feet and the heavens above our heads. Across the African continent, the underworld is not a forgotten myth. It is a living presence that still shapes rituals, festivals, and the way people understand life and death today. From Nigeria to Mali, Ghana to South Africa, the echoes of ancient deities are heard in drumming, seen in masquerades, and felt in the unshakable belief that the ancestors walk beside the living. These traditions remind us that the African vision of death is not darkness, but a bridge connecting worlds. Festivals like the Yoruba Egungun, the Akanakwasiti, or the Dogon Dama continue to dramatize the return of spirits. In these sacred ceremonies, the dead are not mourned in silence but welcomed in celebration. They bless, warn, and remind the living of their duties to the family, community, and cosmic order. Even in modern cities, these festivals remain powerful, proof that the underworld is not buried in the past, but alive in memory and practice. At the same time, African afterlife beliefs have traveled far beyond the continent. In the Americas and the Caribbean, enslaved Africans carried with them visions of Oya, Shango, and the Egungun, transforming them into new spiritual systems like Candomblé, Vodou, and Santeria. These faiths still honor the spirits of the dead, proving that the African underworld did not die with colonization, but instead adapted, evolved, and spread across the globe. In the 21st century, as science tries to explain everything in death is often hidden away, African cosmology offers a startling counterpoint. Death is not absence, but presence. It is a teacher, a mirror, and a gatekeeper. To forget the ancestors is to risk losing balance. To honor them is to remain rooted in wisdom. The gods of death still whisper in rituals, still move in the winds, still dwell in sacred groves and shrines. Their power is not myth, it is memory, heritage, and spiritual truth. And so we arrive at the final reflection. Death in Africa is not the enemy. It is the judge, the guide, and the doorway to eternity. The deities of the underworld, Oya, Adoro, Agwagu, the Namo, the Nsamanfo, remind us that life is fragile, but never final. As the drums quiet and the masks are laid aside, one question remains. When your time comes, will you join the honored ancestors or face the wrath of the gods who rule eternity? Reflect on this before your own journey begins.
Bring the wind, carry us home.
Death is not silence. It is a voice that echoes through ancestors, gods, and the unseen world. Africa's underworld reminds us that every life is judged, every soul is weighed, and no one escapes eternity. The gods of death are not just myths. They are guardians, enforcers, and keepers of cosmic balance. To reflect on them is to reflect on ourselves, our choices, and our destiny beyond the grave. If this journey moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more hidden truths of history and spirituality.